Yo guys, what is going on? Blossom is back and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Now about a week ago I made a video on the channel called Bad Requirements where I kind of talked about my distaste for the recent requirements for, special tag challenges and GT series and all the cars that we were forced to use for big challenges. A lot of you guys agreed and there were just a large amount of really good comments going on in there, some really good discussion, which, for the last week I've wanted to make a response video to everything that you guys have said because some really good stuff there. Haven't gone around to do that, but I do want to talk about some new requirements, some new Tri-Series requirements. One thing that I did not like about Tri-Series requirements and GT Series requirements recently is that we are always seeing the same useless cars get used over and over. Not really the same specific useless cars, but the same useless brand and the same useless types get used over and over. And the most important thing is that, it might be a bit contradictory to say, oh my god, these useless cars are coming back over and over and over. Doesn't that mean that they become useful because, of the replayability? That's not the case. It's only the best versions of those useless niches that become the best. And all of the random 65s and 66s usually just sit there and rot and die. Anyway, today's requirement, or today's video, I want to talk about some requirements that I came up with. Now, basically sat down, had a nice bag of chips and some tea. Are you a tea or coffee person? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm a coffee person, but I don't like having the shits every time I go out. So I kind of gravitate towards tea nowadays. But I kind of sat down for, just about an hour and I came up with some new requirements, which I felt are different, are new, and something that isn't, the run-of-the-mill here. You are forced to use Audis, Subarus, and Bentleys, go F yourself kind of thing, right? Now, one thing I need to take into account for Hutch requirements is that we need to be good, but not that good. There was a time where a Tri-Series requirement was like that. It was like, we gotta be good, but not that good. We need cars that people want to collect, but also cars that, people wouldn't want to collect, kind of thing. But recently, with the requirements that we've had, it's more of like a, let's be as bad as we possibly can. You know what I mean? So I want to take a step back. Let's be good, but not that good. That's the entire ethos of what I'm going for today. So we're going to start off with the first Tri-Series requirement that I think will be pretty cool that we've not seen before. Non-prize cars. Okay, as always, for every single one. Decades and years, we're gonna go to 2023 and we're gonna limit it to 2020 to 2023, so only those years, and we're gonna limit it to only one type of color. So if I go into collections and tags, I want it to only be included silver and gray. Okay, silver and gray, all cars, 82 cars to choose from, and there's a decent spread of cars. You've got 16 rares, 16 super rares, 16 ultra rares, 20 epics, and 9 legendaries. That makes a pretty decent pack, less than 100 cars, and there are a lot of high-end Porsche legendaries that people would like to collect. And the main thing over here that would really draw people in are these 3 Porsches, the GT3 Cup, the GT2 RS Club Sport, as well as the 911 Turbo S 3.7. On top of these 3 cars, the Zenvo TSR GT is a relatively new car that a lot of people would like to collect. And there are also, some pretty nice cars like the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 if you are an American collector and you want to get something from that new update, because it looks like a lot of requirements tries to utilize, newer update cars. Well, this one will include the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 as well as a Cadillac Lyriq all-wheel drive. Porsche Taycan Turbo S is always a pretty good legendary to get as well. I mean, overall, every legendary here has some form of value. I would say that the worst one is probably either one of these 4-wheel drive entire cars, but they aren't specifically useless, or they aren't significantly useless. Like, you can use them in situations, right? Definitely not hot garbage territory. The epics also look okay. I would say is the weakest part of this niche. There are some pretty decent cars though, like the Mazda 3 2.5, a fantastic wet car for car park. We've got the Hyundai Envision 74 as well as the Porsche Taycan GTS. The Taycan GTS is one of those cars where I feel like it hasn't gotten its time to shine in the Tri-Series. So this event will be a great one for it. It's the same thing for the Taycan Turbo S and the Zenvo TSR. I don't think any of these cars have had their time to shine in the Tri-Series. The 911 GT3 and GT2, they've had that time. The Cadillac Lyriq has also had that time. The Corvette Z06, not so much, because it's overshadowed by other Corvette Z8s. And obviously the Electra just had it in the most recent, I think it's like the Devo one or something like that. Yeah, the epics here don't look too good, I will be honest. But they do bounce back in terms of ultra rares. There's some decent ultras to collect like the CT4V, the Backcountry, as well as the Charger Scat Pack Wide Body. Also, you know, this is a great car for clubs. I mean, John Cooper Works GP, and yeah, and of course a Subaru Levorg VN as well. So I think that this could be a nice little tri-series a requirement that can come out in the future. One thing that I also realized that Hutch doesn't really tend to utilize the color tags that much, and it would be a great inclusion into tri-series of the future. I think this is pretty nice. You know, there are not too many OP cars. Like if you put some drags to equal things out, then that would make a more even playing field between the 911 GT2 as well as the Zenvo TSR GT. Especially if you put a test bowl, that would make the Zenvo TSR GT the car for the tri-series, which is relatively new as well. There's some decent variety here and a healthy range of, you know, slightly older and new cars as well. So that is a requirement A. Let me know what you think about this one down in the comments below. Now, I want to move on to our next requirement. We're going to stick with the non-prize cars. This time we're going to go to country. I want to highlight two countries. That is the country of Sweden and the country of the USA, okay? So we're going to go with these two. On top of this, we want to go into miscellaneous, I believe, and we want to select two. So we want to select a state for one. So this will bring in the medium ground clearance cars. So I think that this will be a good final if you want to put in some city streets medium or something like that. And then of course I want to add in a roadster as well. So this is the requirements. These are the cars that you can use. Again, you know, pretty small, just slightly over 100 cars. 4 legends, 16 epics, 18 ultras, 23 supers, 16 rares, 12 uncommons, and 19 commons. So it's a pretty nice and equal spread one more time. And again, there are cars, I mean, it's not too OP. There's no game changer here, right? The highest car is an RQ87. I don't think it's a terrible pack to open, mainly because you got the Chevrolet Serve 3 and the Serve 2. These two are brand new. And I think that it's a good time to use these two cars right now because I guess having the legendary that's from the newest update brings a little bit more value. You don't feel old, right? If another update came around after American Overdrive, I feel like the value and the hype for these two cars are going to drop a little bit. But, you know, get them while it's still hot. You know what I mean? These cars are still the newest cars from the newest update. Let's give players a chance to unpack them, right? So 4 legendaries. The Koenigsegg, I get it. It's a bit of a dud. But if you make it a tri-series where a test bowl is involved, the Koenigsegg CC8S will be a decent car for that track set, along with the Chevrolet Serve 3. I think, you know, looking at the cars in this pool, you know, it would be a great one for, I would say, a tri-series of a mixture of medium streets, ocean streets, as well as fast circuit. You've got cars like the Resvanis that are great on the fast circuit, and then the Volvos are going to be representing the medium ground clearance, right? So you've got the V60 Polestar, the V60 T8 Polestar, as well as the CTSV Sport Wagon. I do believe the CTSV Sport Wagon will be the best one to use, which is a nice homage to this car, because I don't think this car has ever been useful in anything. It used to be legendary back in the day, if you guys remember. It had like 102 MRA or something like that. But obviously it's gone down how far it has fallen to a mid-range epic of all things. It's never had its day, so this would be one, you know, like, okay, this would make the Volvos kind of redundant. You might as well just make it like a USA Roadster Estate Final. But you could add, you know, maybe Rain City Streets to make the Volvos useful. I think honestly this is what Hutch needs to do. Like, don't think about the track sets first and think about the requirements. Think about the requirements first and then think about what track sets complement the cars really well. Looking at these cars over here, I feel fast circuit, Resvanis, City Street wet for, you know, the V60. It might actually make the Chrysler Nassau useful as well. Depends on if it's a medium or a small, I guess. And then maybe like an Ocean City Street Drive for the CTSV Sport Wagon, something like that. Like, you just gotta be creative with these kind of stuff. I would not make this, you know, an all-surface kind of event. I won't have any off-road track sets. I know there's things like the Buick Regal and also like the Volvo V90, but I won't give a shit about those cars. But overall, you know, it's not the best requirement out there, but it's not the worst, right? Like, you're getting some new legendaries, some decent epics. I, for one, wouldn't mind unpacking any of the Resvanis or the Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. I mean, I would mind unpacking the Resvanis because I have them. But if I didn't have them, I wouldn't mind that at all. So that's my second requirement. Now, moving on to another one, which I feel like might be a pretty decent fit. This one is a really good one. I think this one is really more like a player first. I think, you know, you gotta add some gems, you know, into the mix. And I think this one is going to be a really fun, yet, you know, there's not many overpowered cars, like cars that would win by like 200 points against the closest second opponent, right? So this one I'm going for, it is a tire. So car attributes, yes, slick. Yep, slick only. And front engine. So all cars, this is the next one. So over here, we've got 59 cars, 16 legendaries, 25 epics, 10 ultra rares, 6 super rares, and 2 rares. It doesn't really matter to Tri-Series with the lower end stuff. Like, those cars are never going to win you a Tri-Series anyway. The last time I remember a rare actually making a difference was for like the Koenigsegg Jesko, I believe. Was it the Koenigsegg Jesko? It was the one where you needed to use the Mazda MX-5. Remember that? But anyway, slick front engine cars. I think this is just, an all-around fun requirement that a lot of people will enjoy and a lot of people will open some packs for. And I don't think that there are any, super OP cars or anything like that. Unless you put like a 1 mile drag, then maybe the Corvette IMSA GTO C4 will probably take names everywhere, but I wouldn't say by too much. I mean, everything is, pretty fairly distributed. There's some new cars in here as well. You can grab yourself a Corvette C7R as well as the IMSA GTO. There are also some older gems like the Continental GT3, the G55 GT3, and then obviously when we move on to epics, there's some really good things here. I mean, honestly, this is just a feel-good event, right? A feel-good Tri-Series. I think a lot of people would like to open some packs. A lot of people like to fully upgrade these cars. Things like the Mazda 254, the Ginetta G50, the Caterham 7420 Cup. Put a slalom in there, and this car will be pretty damn useful. You know what I mean? So I think it's a fun one. There are also some Joker cars in here. Like I think a lot of people wouldn't want to open another Morgan Aero 8 GTE3. I don't think a lot of people want the Alfa Romeo 155 GTA unless you're Sauber, or even the Audi V8 Quattro. So there are some duds. Moving on to the epics, the lower range epics, you've got these RQ65s that probably not a lot of people want to get. Ultra Rare is always a fun one as well. I can imagine a lot of people having fun opening these packs and getting some really good ultra rares in this requirement. So I think that's a really fun one. And honestly, there's no like OP. The one thing that really annoyed me, I think it's the Audi R18 final was one of those finals where, one car was just so incredibly dominant that if someone had it, there was no point like racing them. It was a Koenigsegg Regera, like there are very few cars in top drives that can make an impact like that. But I don't think any of these cars, although they're all high performance stick tire cars, can make that impact. Like they're all very, they're all very similar to each other. They all handle around the same. They all have high top speeds. They got low 0 to 60s. I think that this would be a very, very fun niche and a very, very fun requirement for a future Tri-Series. I've got 2 more to showcase to you. This one is quite interesting. It is 2015. So decades and years. We got to go to 2015. Only 2015, by the way. And we're going to go back to colors over here. So we're going to go down to collections and tags. I think I'm going with 4 colors. Yes, I am. So we're going with black. We're going with white. We're going with yellow, and we're going with orange. So we're going with orange, and we are going with yellow. Where is yellow? 4 cars. All cars, let's go. So 43 cars. This is the smallest one of the bunch that I'll be showing you today. So within that field, we've got 7 legends, 11 epics, 10 ultra rares, 8 super rares. Again, it all matters in the top cars over here. And I think that this would be a pretty interesting one for the Ultimas. To my recollection, I don't think the Ultimas were useful in anything at all. Think about the Radicals. The Radicals have had like 3-4 Tri-Series where the Radicals were super useful. There have been Tri-Series where the Ultima could be used, but it was, to my memory, it was never the best, right? So this would be a great example for the Ultima Evolution Coupe to be relatively useful. I mean, this is a car that I've unpacked for quite some time. I've never used it before. I forget that I even have it. But again, the legendary pool here is okay. I'd be happy getting 5 out of the 7. I think most people wouldn't really be happy getting the 911 Targa or the Bentley Continental. Looking at the track sets, I feel like some off-road tires or some all-surface, some all-surface track sets might be useful because, dude, if I remember correctly, there are not any off-road tires here. It's just all-surface, right? So if I look in car attributes, no, tires, I think. Isn't there one just for tires? Oh, yeah, I'm just looking right at it. Yeah, there's no off-road. It's all surface, which is good. That's the main thing. So I want to make this like, more of an off-road final where, no off-road tires can make it say, because obviously you put one off-road tire in there and it's going to be dominant. So, here the all-surface tire cars would make much of a difference, like the Audi SQ5 TDI, the BMW X650. Those would make a difference. You put in things like a hill climb and maybe even the AMG G63 might be useful. A car that a lot of people used to use back in the day that people kind of forget about now. In terms of epics, there are some decent cars if you want to put some twisty track sets. Then things like the Lotus Exige Sport, the Lotus Evora will come in handy if you need a little bit of drag. You can have the Jaguar F-Type or the Charger SRT, but obviously the SRT isn't the best because, you know, if you have a legendary, the Koenigsegg Agera S might be a good one. I would refrain from using the test bull here though, because a test bull would make the Koenigsegg Agera RS so incredibly dominant over everything else, it wouldn't even make the event fun anymore. I would keep things nice and short at the quarter-mile part, like nothing more than a quarter mile. Something where the Koenigsegg Agera will be the better car than the Charger, but the point differential between both of these should stay under like 100 between these two cars, which is kind of what I'm going for. You could even think about putting in like a wet fast circuit or something to utilize like Aventador Continental or even the 911. So there's a lot of things to think about. You know, put in a little bit of wet, maybe like a wet twisty or something like that. Even where the KTM 7270 could even be pretty useful. So yeah, this is another requirement where I think, you know, could be a little fun. I would say out of everything I've suggested, this is probably the weakest one. But again, the Ultimas, they need to get some use, right? Last but not least, I'm saving the best one for last. This is what I like to call the Louis favorites, my favorites. This is my childhood, right? So again, we're using that underutilized tag for a Tri-Series color. We're going for red. My favorite color is red. And then we're gonna go into manufacturer, and we're gonna select some of my favorite brands going up, which includes BMW, Dodge, Mercedes-Benz, and last but not least, Lotus. Now, Lotus was not a brand that I loved growing up, but I just wanted to add Lotus because they added, not many cars, but some really good ones into the pack. Because obviously I got to think about the pack as well. So this is kind of like, my favorites, my childhood nostalgia. It blossoms childhood nostalgia or something like that. So just red, Dodge, Mercedes, BMW, and Lotus, just because, I really wanted to add like the Lotus 311 430. Lotus just adds a lot of good red cars. The Evora GTE, the GT 430. This is a garnish. The Lotus is a garnish in the pack. But obviously, like in my childhood, right, my mom had a red E36, I believe, growing up, and then obviously she moved on to the X1, and then she had an X3. So my mom's like a BMW person. I always grew up a Mercedes and a Dodge person. So kind of, just nostalgia here, there, and everywhere, right? So I think this will be a pretty fun requirement. The Blossom aspect aside, there's some pretty decent cars that you can unpack here. Things like the Lotus 311 430 and the BMW M3 Competition being the top two cars is going to be really cool. These two Vipers, probably not that good anymore. The fact that these two are the same RQ is just crazy. 3493, 3590, they're both 80. This is why Hutch needs some balancing, man. But there are some really good epics in here to collect as well, like the SRT10, the Superstock, SLS AMG GT, the AMG GT, and just a lot of nice nostalgic cars that I would enjoy. Ultra Rares, we've got the E39 M5, we've got the Z4 M3. I mean, honestly, the Ultra Rares, none of them really stand out and looking like they're really, really good or anything like that. The Charger 3 is cool. The Ram SRT10 is cool. I mean, this one just pulls on my heartstrings. I would like to see this. That'd be pretty cool. I think the main highlights here is that if you had a drag track set, then the Superstock would be a super useful car. If you had a super twisty track set, the Viper SRT10 ACR, and of course the Lotus 311 will be the ones that you kind of want to go for. Overall, I would have a lot of fun. Again, and I'm not just choosing this because I have an OP hand. I don't even have the top two cars, right? So if you go into my cars, this is what I'm gonna be running. So if there was a final like this, I'd be using like maybe two Vipers, a Superstock. Depends on what you use. If you put more twisty track sets, I would have to use the Lotuses as well. Maybe even if it's some off-road, you could use like the BMW or the Durango if you really want it. If you want to be chaotic like that. I mean, there are not a lot of also retired cars you could use, but if you really want to just make the world burn and make the X6M like a super useful car, that's an option, I guess. But yeah, anyway guys, those are my 5 little suggestions for Tri-Series Rex that we can see in the future. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about them, what's your favorite, which is your least favorite. Anyway, hope you guys have a great day. Stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy. jazzy, turn it on and play it slow like the movies with the ladies.
Hey, Sophie.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville Pontiac. Hold tight all night, cruise to Jacksonville
Atlantic.
Blonde hair, don't care, look like Leslie Brooks. Pin up girl